Hello, everyone. Welcome to Masters in Travel. I'm your host, Whitney. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that I feel we do not talk about often enough, and that is the future of our businesses, the future for ourselves as entrepreneurs and business owners, and ultimately our legacy. Lindsey Epperley today is chairwoman of Jet Set World Travel, but less than 15 years ago, she was an independent contractor and a travel advisor in a brick and mortar agency. So, Lindsey, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Whitney. I'm really excited to talk about this topic.
Well, and thank you for your willingness to talk about it, because I know that it's a really big thing. And I was like, I don't know if she'll say yes, but let's try. And here we are.
I'm a pretty open book. I mean, by this point, you know me, and I am more than happy to go down this path with you and answer all the questions, uncover all the secrets. You let me know.
Amazing. I'm so excited. So, in the last 15 years, you've had a lot of titles and a lot of roles and positions. Give us, the high level 5-minute journey of how your time in the industry started and how you got to being the chairwoman of one of the fastest growing, most exciting host agencies in the industry.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Yeah. So my quick story, and this is actually really fun because as we're talking about this topic, I think it's important for listeners to know that with each of these title changes came a very difficult evolution of sorts, right? Like they usually followed a season of burnout where I think my body was very much telling me it's time to change, it's time to evolve. And I knew based off of my goals, here's where I go next. So let's take it
Okay.
all the way back 15 years ago. I was 19 years old, walked into a brick and mortar agency for a brochure for a Carnival cruise. Which should make you laugh because you and I had that joke last week about baked Alaska.
Baked Alaska. Do we know why it's called a baked Alaska dessert?
I know the history of baked Alaska desserts, but I know they come on fire on a Carnival cruise.
Lindsey was embarrassed that we're at a restaurant going on and on and on about a baked Alaska dessert, and I didn't know what it was. And Lindsey looked over at me and goes, "It's clear you've never been on a Carnival cruise."
Of us have not been, and it shows. Some of us grew up on Carnival cruises. So this is even a bigger evolution that I wound up in the luxury travel industry, right? Like I had never stayed in anything beyond a Sheraton, and suddenly I'm sailing 4 seasons. So
I grew up in tents at national parks. So a Carnival cruise honestly sounds very luxurious compared to sleeping on the ground. And
there are formal nights. Okay, so this Carnival cruise brochure is kind of what did it for me. I walked in to get this brochure. I wound up talking to the agency owners. I was in college at the time, and I just was like, I love travel, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't vying for a job, and I accidentally walked out with one. They were like, why don't you sell honeymoons to, your friends getting married?
Your friends.
I'm like, sure. So that's where I started. I worked as an IC for about 5 years, but as I was working as an IC, I kind of kept scaling the ladder, and I would be the youngest person in the room very frequently. And then the industry started getting a bit younger, which was fun. So other people would see me and say, "Oh, she's succeeding, and she's under 150 years old. So there's something that she's doing." And so they would approach me and say, "Could you mentor me, or what would it look like if I studied under you?" And so I started seeing a possibility to raise up the next generation of travel advisors and teach them what I knew and help them avoid the pitfalls I had fallen into. And so even though it wasn't necessarily an official title between travel advisor and jumping into the CEO role about 10 years later, I really mentored people within that time frame. And I would say that was kind of one of the biggest evolutions that I first faced, was learning how to be a mentor, how to be a manager, running a team. And so for a while, I ran a team within a team. So this is why I started casting vision around this. I did it before it became very popular, which I think it is one of the most prominent ways to build out a business.
What does that mean, a team within a team?
Team within a team is essentially it's what we do at Jet Set, right? It's how we have team leaders. So it's a that you decide to use almost as an umbrella or an incubator, as you have your own brand, you have your own advisors under you. I think this is very common in the travel industry these days.
Yeah.
Back when I started it was not.
Sure.
I was building this team as part of a larger company, but I never had any sort of mentorship. I never had a peer group. No one was doing it. And I felt like, well, I'm just the blind leading the blind. I'm having to figure this out. So that's why I started casting that vision for Jet Set. I wanted it to be the host agency I always wish I had had.
Right.
Built on a team. Anyway, around, we take the company separate from that team because I know I want to go out on my own. My husband, Jeremy, who is now our CEO, stepped into the company around that time to help me scale it and help me take it independent. And at that point, I stepped into the CEO role. And I said,
So
all right,
you severed from the host agency, and did you have your own IATA?
yes, yes.
Okay,
End
okay.
of 2019. So you can imagine, Whitney, how sad that IATA was for about a year.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
The
Just, like, flaunting about
the
on
poorest
pit self,
performing
like,
IATA there ever was.
wah, wah.
Here we are with, like, 2 bookings and then the
Poor IATA.
poor IATA. It's doing great these days. But yes, we had our own IATA. That was the big jump. We severed from that host agency, and it was Epperley Travel at the time. My maiden name, this was the company that we were known as. And we navigated the pandemic, and I learned how to be a leader during that time. And then we got the awesome opportunity to acquire a company that was larger than us that I had long since admired, which was Jet Set World Travel. So we acquired them in 2021. I'm still acting as CEO. We bring those two companies together as Jet Set World Travel in 2022. All throughout this, I'm having babies, having these personal crises of like, what do I want? Who do I want to show up as? You know, I'm still
As we
CEO,
do.
as we do, just bring them along for the
Yep,
ride.
yep.
And then last year, 2024 was the year we hit 10 years old in the company. And I decided it was time for me to step into a chairwoman role and out of the day to day and appointed Jeremy as CEO.
That is quite a journey for, like, I'm sure that it didn't feel short, by any means from your perspective. As you mentioned, there was a lot of burnout and evolution along the way. Um, but it does feel like you went 0 to 100 in a relatively short time period. It seems like a lot of people do that in a lifetime of their career, and I feel like you're just getting started. You're very
Yeah.
much like you're quite young and not even, like, close to being like, "I'm ready to retire." So what as having a team within a team and then severing from a host agency and having your IATA and then acquiring a company larger than you, like, all of these steps are huge,
Yeah.
huge. Um, what was the catalyst that even got something rolling around in your brain to begin with of, maybe I won't always be like, maybe we didn't even know the answer of I'm going to be chairwoman. Maybe it was just like that first thought of, maybe I won't always be the CEO of this company. And then I feel like there's a progression to, like, first having the thought and then slowly being okay with the thought.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
100%.
projecting a lot here, like, based on how I think that I would process this information. So tell me
Yeah.
about your experience.
Yes. Of those 15 years, I'd say about 5 years were spent on this part of the journey of just figuring out what is next. And not even, to your point, not even knowing that this was an option. And
Right.
so it took a few things. One, I think becoming a mom during the pandemic and all the identity crises that happen around that, right? It already happens when you become a mom for the first time, but it also happens when you see your business start failing for the first time. If you're anything like me, and I think this is a typical founder scenario where
Mhm.
tie our self-worth to our
Yep.
success. And so for the first time ever, we were not up and to the right, and my
Mhm.
business is failing. It's spending 18 months in the red. We had to walk away from a home in order to save the business. Like, we had to make these really painful sacrifices that had me start evaluating. Well, first, I started evaluating, why did I waste my 20s building a business? I could have gone on a fun reality dating show or something. Uh,
Exactly. I've had those thoughts as well. I was like, "Man, I was such a buzzkill in my 20s."
such a buzzkill. Why was I
I
so
was all like
responsible?
I was all, like, focused on goals and stuff.
Absolutely. I had a lot of regret around that, but now I'm glad I did it.
I've had similar regret. You're not alone.
You feel it when you're in a season of failure. Like, had I known this was just gonna fail, I would have not spent all this time
Exactly.
being
I wouldn't
responsible.
be trying so hard. Jeez.
Seriously. But I do think that was the first point, right? That 2020 season was the first point where I really started separating my identity from the business. And I think that's an extremely pivotal role to one day step out of your business, whether you are exiting as a chairwoman or you are actually selling the business. You
Mhm.
cannot be so enmeshed that one, you probably won't even be able to sell it if you're that enmeshed. But two, if you are, you're going to have to sell it for a much lower evaluation because
Mhm. You're
you
leaving.
are required.
Mhm.
So I just started realizing, like, man, am I just am I just Epperly Travel and Epperly Travel is me and that's the end of this? And I started feeling like, no, I have a lot more in me. Like, I really want to use this company for the greater good, but I also want to use it as an asset for my family. And if I am required, it's never going to be either of those things. I'm always going to be the bottleneck. It's not going to be able to perform at its highest. It's not going to be able to make the impact that it can. So a lot of this was identity work that first came in order for me to one day be able to say, I'm going to step down as chairwoman.
Interesting. So I actually can I take us backwards one step because I think that this is where myself included, where a lot of travel advisors will get stuck is like at some point you were Epperley Travel, then you started bringing on ICs under you, and that was your team within a team, and so you're mentoring them. Were they also ICs or were they
Mhm.
employees at any point?
Both and I would have
Okay,
assistants and ICs.
okay, and like so that's the and then it went from there to acquiring Jet Set. So at what point did you start getting your personal clients used to not working with you?
Great question. Great question. So and when we talk about this evolution piece, this was a really painful part of it because I loved being a travel advisor. Like I loved planning trips. I loved working with my clients. It brought me so much joy for so many years until suddenly it didn't.
Mhm.
And and I thought maybe this was just a little bit of burnout I could move past. I thought that I could like optimize my life and I would move past the burnout and I would come to love it again. And when it became evident to me that actually this is like my body is now physically responding to me doing this work because it kind of knows that I have more in me than this. That's when it became evident that, okay, I've got to start living a little bit more hands open with my clients and delegating them to team members who are perfectly capable, even though they are not me. And that's where we really get stuck, right? We look for like a miniature version of ourselves. We look for, well, if I don't do it, no one's going to want the service. And that is so incorrect. Like Jet Set these days, I look at it, I'm like, all of you guys are so much better travel advisors than I ever was. How did I think I was the best? You know? But so that to answer your question, this was about 2019, actually right before I found out I was pregnant, even
Okay.
that I just kind of started feeling that like I've got to pass on some of these clients. Really intentionally. It's different passing on overflow, which I was doing before, than
Right.
actually whittling down your book of business. Those are two different
Yes.
activities.
Because there are some people that I love so much.
Yes. Yes, and you say, "I will always serve you," and that's fine. You get to design it. But for me, what happened is I would dwindle it down from, like 500 clients to now like 100 clients. And I'm like, "Oh, still too much, still too much." And then I dwindle it down to 50, and then I dwindle it down to 20. And then I was like at the at the height of the like pandemic wreaking havoc on everything, I think I had like 20 clients that I worked with directly. And I knew in my bones that was still too much. Like, it's got to be zero because this company needs a leader.
Mhm.
And if I'm so focused on client work, I'm not going to be able to lead this team through this crisis. And so that was a big shift for me was the clients are now distracting and I know I have a great team who can serve them. I love them with all my heart, but I love this team even more. And we're not going to have clients to serve if we don't have a team to serve them at the end of the day. So it was really stepping up in leadership then.
So how did clients react
Mostly
to the
pretty
news?
good. I think I'm not gonna paint this with, like, just rose-colored glasses, right? Like, when you make this choice, you will lose clients. There will be some that just say, "Nope, I only wanted you. I don't wanna even try someone new." And there will be some that try someone new and say, "Meh, they weren't you, so we're going elsewhere." And then there will be some that are like, "Cool. Alright, as long as they do a good job, I'm game."
Right.
This is where abundance thinking, I think, is so helpful because I tend to live in a scarcity mindset and I would be like, "Oh my gosh, if I give up these clients, I'm never gonna get new clients." But at the rate that Jet Set was going at the time, that was Epperly Travel, there was a pipeline, like a new client
Mhm.
coming in, right? And so it was like, cool. If people choose to go elsewhere, I've got to just like live very hands open, and that is their choice. I can't control it, but I know that we
Mhm.
can get new clients in the door. And I know that we can start them at the advisors now that will not be comparing them to me, and they'll love it. They'll love the
Mhm.
experience because they're not stuck with like what was Lindsey Epperley.
Right.
And that's been huge.
I would I'm gonna make a lot of assumptions on behalf of a lot of people right now, but I feel like what you just described is often the part that feels stickiest for people of like, how could I ever grow beyond what I'm doing now? Or how could I ever not be the CEO running my agency or this business? Because how could I ever go to these clients and say, someone else is going to be planning your trips now? And I think it's not that you simplified it by any means and made it sound easy, but I think just by describing it and sharing it, you made it sound possible for
Yes,
someone who really wants it.
that was what I needed too, was to see the possibility. I'll add as well that when I talk about the, like, identity work that I had to do, there's a lot of ego involved in all of this too, and I faced it when giving away my book of business, and I faced it when stepping down from CEO, because you just think like, "This is my baby, of course it needs me, it rises and falls on me," and there's, like, a level of self-importance that comes with that, and the time that I was most humbled by this, I think this is such a funny story because it shows that, like, I still held on to some of it even after stepping down. But basically, when I made the decision to step down, I even said, "I want to write the press release," right? Like, we have a fantastic marketing person, she could have written the press release, but I'm like, "This is my final move." And I think I titled it something like, "Lindsey Epperley steps down." You know, like, that's the title of the press release, because everyone's
I
lamenting,
just
like, me
imagine like,
leaving. Like, so dramatic. And then when it ran in all of the media outlets, it was like, "Jet Set appoints new CEO, Jeremy Sulik." And I was like, "Oh, oh, they don't care." Like, the market does not care that I stepped down. It cares who's in charge now. Like, the market
yes.
cares about you can get someone equipped to deliver your service, to run your business. Like, they don't care that you're going because of your ego. You cared more than they care. Like, just put out a good product into the market. It's just business.
That's so true and also so humbling.
Like, you changed this headline, travel poll.
Shots fired.
I love travel polls. I love them. Congratulations to Eric.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so once you knew something had to change, you said for like 5 years, from the pandemic you were feeling it. When did the idea that stepping down as CEO and becoming chairwoman, like when did that even like cross your radar of maybe this is an option? Like how
Yeah.
did that come about?
I had like 3 pivotal moments, and it actually harkens back to what you just said of like, we just need to see it's a possibility. And so I had kinda like 3 interactions, one with a friend who had worked at a marketing company who then stepped down in order to pursue writing, which is one of the things I really wanted to do. So I got to see someone else do it. Um, One was actually, and you might have interviewed her at some point or another, but Bailey White, who was on our team, who
Mhm.
ended up
Mhm.
selling her company. And
Yep.
I actually was just interviewed on her podcast and admitted this to her of like, man, Bailey, when that happened, like something ugly reared up inside of me. I was kind of jealous.
Yeah.
And so I would actually even say to people who are listening to my story and they might be a little bit snarky about it, like there might be some work to do because there might be some
Maybe
jealousy.
dig into that.
Yeah, dig into it. I had to. And then 3, I talk about my mentors all the time, my business mentors, Brian and Shannon Miles, who mentor myself and Jeremy. Um, we were at a board meeting with them, and I was just kind of saying, like, here's where my head is at. And they were like, okay, are you ready to like step into a chairwoman role? And I was like, what is that? So they
Oh,
planted a
really?
seed, and I had seen them successfully do this as well. So, like, guess just getting to see other people that live some of the life you wish you had,
Yes.
instead of becoming resentful of that, like digging in and saying, "Okay, well, how can I make that my life?"
Exactly. So once the seed was planted, was it dormant for a while or was it like planted, that's the next step and like within months it was happening? Like how quickly did that happen for you?
No, it was dormant for a while. It took again, it was an ego thing, and so when Brian and Shannon asked, "Are you ready to become chairwoman?" I was like, "No, I am CEO. This is my baby. It still has time under me." But then it just started planning for the year ahead. Like this was the end of 2023, beginning of 2024. Jeremy and I are setting goals for ourselves and for the business. And I had just had a second baby. And once you come back from maternity, sometimes you're like, my tongue is too heavy to even say business words. Like, I don't know how to keep it. And I would even tell him sometimes, I'm like, please treat me like an employee. Like my executive function is just gone right now. And so I was like still adjusting to, post maternity, coming back into the company, and going like, I've been thinking about this. And he was like, what if we made a plan? What would this look like if we set the goal of October and we worked toward it and you took a sabbatical? So you actually got to try it hands off and you got to tweak anything that went wrong. So we were very thoughtful about it. But yeah, it was not an overnight thing at all.
Well, a sabbatical is a good idea to
Yeah.
kind of like test the waters, not only to see like how does the business do, but also how do you do?
Yes, that is a pivotal piece. Like, you also need to thrive, and I did. I felt like, oh, there's been some energetic weight on me that was a level of responsibility that I was just not looking to continue to carry. And
Mhm.
it also, a big piece of this too is having a partner that you trust, right? Like, I knew Jeremy
Sure.
was running the company. He's an incredible leader. He knows the company inside and out. So, like,
Mhm.
I knew I could trust him. And then we also have an awesome leadership team. And so it was really cool to see them step up in my absence. And I would just get to come to, like, kinda, or like touch bases and check-ins, and they're like, "It's running along like this, and we had this issue, but we put out the fire." And I'm like, "That's the coolest thing in the
We're
world.
good,
I didn't
boss.
know
Look at
about
us go.
this." So you do have to have those checks and balances. You can't just be like, "I've decided to leave," with no proper
Eff
setup.
effective Friday.
Exactly. This was like
Um,
effective in 5 years. Like, this took a while.
so was there any part of this, of stepping down, like, from what am I gonna do with my time to is the company gonna thrive to how are people gonna react? Like, is there any part of this process that just felt super scary or absolutely
Mm.
terrifying for you?
Yeah, the "how are the people gonna react" was huge for me. I'm just a natural people pleaser, and I didn't realize how much of me stepping up and continuing to lead the company was me trying to fulfill other people's expectations of me.
Interesting.
And so some of it had to do with, like, all right, I I guess part of it made me feel most at peace with this is I had worked really hard over a decade to instill the best parts of me as our company culture, right? Like, when I am at my best, I am being gracious, I am being kind, I am being innovative, like, I am believing in my value. And so I was really intentional over the past 10 years to really build out a company culture that I think our team at Jet Set leans into, and I knew would outlive me. Whether I step
Mhm,
out or I get hit by a big red bus, like, I want that to be the company culture. And
mhm.
so even though I was like, "Oh, people might not react well for me, not being in this leadership role anymore," I'm really confident that I've set up a beautiful company that embodies the best parts of myself. And so hopefully they won't miss me and my, whatever I bring to the table, charisma.
Mhm.
But I'm at least talking why, you know, I am at least instilling goodness in it, and that will outlive me and outpace me.
So we talked about so it's interesting that this was your biggest like fear or concern. We talked about the spectrum of client reactions.
Mhm.
Did you receive a spectrum of reactions to the news of you stepping down?
That's a really good question. I actually got really beautiful reactions to it. People were really kind and gracious, and I also think because I had taken some of those, like, sabbatical breaks and I had intentionally, like, stepped back a bit, they were kinda like, "Okay, so what's gonna be different?" Like, there was a level of that. Like, Jeremy's been really stepping up as a leader, so they already trusted him, like, and people were just understanding of, like, I'm in a season with littles, like, I wanna be present in a way that I haven't been able to, and they were really kind about that.
Good. Um, when you announced at the summit last year that you were stepping down, my immediate like it's funny to think of like the range of thoughts and emotions I had like hearing the news
Yeah,
because a whole lot happened in like a split second.
yeah,
And
tell
I
me.
remember I remember the first thought I had was, "This is possible?"
Yes.
Like, not for you, for me. I was just like we've been saying, like, I didn't know that this was a possibility.
Yeah.
And my immediate next reaction was, "This is the most courageous thing I've ever seen."
Aw,
I
Whitney.
I just felt like she is so brave to, like, release her baby into the wind and know that it's going to succeed and do so well. Like, I was just in awe of, like, your courage because I think that, um, even first, I didn't really know it was possible, but even if I even had, like, the slightest idea that maybe the agency wouldn't always be mine, I don't know if I would have the courage to let it go. At least
You
not to
Yeah.
maybe in the future, like, I think that a lot of evolution but like you said, there's so much, personal and ego and inside work took for you to get there. I think that I'm not there yet. And so this I was just like, she's so courageous. This is incredible. So
Thank
those were my thoughts when it happened.
That is that actually, like, makes me tear up. Thank you. People haven't necessarily said that to me, so that means a lot. No, it was, you think that, like, courage is starting something, but I do feel like it was the I do like, I when I look back at it, I'm like, "Wow, that was the hardest thing I've ever done." I think courage oftentimes is, like, leaving something that you know
Mhm,
world will be better when you do this because you can see the vision on the other side. Like, it would have been
mhm,
different, I think, had I, like, exited at a low point and I'm like, "Good luck with this business, everyone," but, like, I really feel like I stewarded it well. I feel like it's, like,
mhm,
Jet Set's doing better than it's ever done, and it's not about size. It's not about, like, whether it's, like, the size that it was pre-pandemic or now. It's more about, like, it's just it's become like a teenager instead of like, it's grown
mhm,
over the course of 10 years, and what got us here won't get us there, kind of like in parenting. So, like, I see it as, all right, it has the ability to take the training wheels off and not
mhm.
have mama just hovering over its shoulder anymore, and I
Right,
think it's
right.
really cool.
It's fascinating to compare that to parenting because that is our goal with
Yeah.
parenting is, like to raise an independent, being and release them out into the world, and that's what we're going for. But with businesses, that's not necessarily like the goal from the beginning. I
No.
think from the beginning, it's really hard for that to be the goal because you're just trying to like make something work.
You're trying to survive.
Like, so
And that's
how can I,
too, right? Like, that makes sense in the same parallel.
yeah. So I can't say specifically how much impact like you announcing in October had on me with some discussions that came in my life November, December, but I struggle to say that they had zero impact,
Yeah.
like I don't know. So the backstory is like I started speaking with investors about the hive.
Mhm.
And the very first investor in the very first conversation asked me, do you think that there will be any point in which you are no longer the best person to lead this tech company and that you would be willing to step down as CEO? And without a beat, I was like, absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. There will be a time that I should step aside because someone else more equipped with more experience with different areas of expertise will be the best to lead it.
yes.
This question was posed to me less than 1 month after Summit, and I can't say that my answer wouldn't have been similar had I not heard what you just did at Summit, but I might have had a little bit more of like, "Oh, that's interesting. I'd never thought about that," or probably, yeah, you know what I mean? I'm not it's
Mm.
impossible to know what I would have said, but I I think because I had just, like, experienced that with you, like, when he asked, immediately my brain was like, "Yes, absolutely. I am the person to lead the hive today. I am
Yeah.
not the person to lead the hive, in 3 or 5 years or, whatever the time frame ends up being."
God, that gives me chills. But that's the way to look at it if you're building out a business that is an organization that, like, what is in the best interest of the business is not
E
always necessarily the founder. And I do believe Jet Set had gotten to that point of, like, I'm gonna keep bottlenecking this thing because of my own stuff that I'm bringing to the
Mhm.
table. And so it'd be great to get a fresh pair of eyes that, like,
Yeah.
has an MBA to his name and actually, like, is a strategy guy, like, hey.
Well,
So
and there's so many things that are similar, but there's so many things that are different. Like our travel businesses, they are us,
yeah,
right? Like we build it as a one-woman show from the very beginning, and it's a really long time before there's anyone else even remotely involved.
yeah,
Whereas the Hive or like a large host agency, it's an organization. These
yes.
are companies that cannot be run by just one solo person. It absolutely requires a team, it requires a culture, it requires a vision. There's so many things. And so, I mean, I'm sure that all of this had a little bit to do with it. And I also am the first to say, I don't know the first thing about running a tech company. I'm a travel advisor who knows that I need support that I don't currently have, but I don't know the first thing about building and running a tech company. So there are differences between the companies, and it's my third business and not my first business.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that that's a little bit to do with it as well, but still I cannot diminish that only weeks before I got to watch you do
That's
something similar.
incredible. I think it's really important to kind of camp out on what you just said too for listeners who are listening to this and going like, I have no interest. Like this is no, that's not what I'm desiring to build. Like that's also okay. That to your
Yeah.
point, create these travel businesses and a lot of people are like, I'm so happy with what I've built. Yeah, I'm overwhelmed or yeah, I'm overworked, but like I love the work that I'm doing. My personality type just kind of requires an evolution every like 5 to 6 years. And so it was for me knowing like, oh, I also want to write a book. Oh, I also want to help with a nonprofit. Like I know I have other things in me. And so I don't want to say my story has to be everyone's story. Like you don't have to build a business to step away from it. I think it is perfectly valid and so, so cool if you're like, I am an entrepreneur and I'm going to sit in this entrepreneur role forever and I love it. Like maybe actually, Whitney, I should outline those, what we've been talking about a lot lately, the like
Yeah.
phases of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, please
Um,
do.
so those mentors that I mentioned, Brian and Shannon, kind of early on taught me that there are seasons to entrepreneurship. If you are especially building out a larger organization, you just need to know where you fall. And so there are 4 seasons or stages. The first is hustler. And that's when you are like, all right, I got this like weekend gig that I'm doing. I'm building this out over on the side. I'm keeping my day job, but like I love it. I am hustling. You know, like everyone listening has been in the hustler phase at some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
When you get past the hustler phase and you're like, all right, this is a full-fledged business. I'm going to quit my 9 to 5. I'm going to actually turn this into a company. Maybe I have an assistant, like maybe I'm getting a little bit more help. That's the entrepreneur phase. That's phase 2. And then if you say, kind of like what I did with Epperley slash Jet Set, all right, I actually want to lead this company. Like I want to build out a team of individuals who can function in various silos that I know I'm not best at, right? Like I can do some marketing, but I'm not great at marketing. I've never been able to do finance. Like I need people in these roles. That's when you move into the CEO role. And that's much more like you're no longer getting to plan travel and be a stellar CEO. Those two things are counterproductive. Like you kind of have to choose. And if you want your company to thrive, someone needs to be a leader. So that's you or you're hiring out, right? So that's the CEO role. And then the final phase is that of owner, which is I'm no longer in the day to day. I have appointed a CEO. Someone else is running this. I'm coming to the board meetings. Like this is my asset. But like at all of those phases, you're still a founder. You know, you still have the like, this is my baby. I care so much about it. I'm
Yeah.
so proud of it. Like the coolest thing, Whitney, was going to our team leaders meeting this week. And I also attended our base camp, which is what we do with our leadership a couple of months ago, and getting to see this company thrive without me. Like I am probably more proud now than I ever have been because like it is a living, breathing organization and it is doing incredible things and making impact and changing lives. And that's what I always wanted. So I say all of that to say, like, if you're listening to this and you're like, I know exactly where I am on that schedule, you don't have to have goals beyond it. Like, you do what's right for you.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that you said that because just like it's important that you know something is a possibility, that can open up your mind to moving on to the next step. And for me, it actually solidified that as far as my travel agency goes, I am very comfortable in like this entrepreneur CEO role and I'm not striving to be owner for my travel agency.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So knowing what's possible also helps you to be like, "No, actually, I'm really good here. I
Yeah.
really like where I'm at." Whereas when I think about something like the Hive, I'm like, "Oh, let's get to owner." Like,
Yeah.
whew, this is not like I want this for myself. I want the industry to have this. I want to build this for, the greater good of our industry. I don't want to be in the day-to-day of this.
Yeah. That's incredible. To your point though, you can, and then you don't have to kind of worry about what else is out there. Like you can kind of put to rest that buzzing sensation of what's next if you are able to identify where you want to go.
Right, right. But until all of these, like, options were,
Mhm.
like, swirling around me and actually articulated for me, I wasn't able to, like, clearly say, "Oh, no, this is what I want, and I feel really good about that." And so I don't have to, like, be distracted by other decisions that other people are making or feel like lost along my way because I think at this team leaders meeting that we just had with Jet Set, I'm also surrounded by many agency owners who are striving to be bigger and better and truly kind of step into that ownership role. And so I was having kind of a moment prepping for this meeting, and during this meeting Jeremy asked me to present like second and I was like, can I please not? And he was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because I don't know what to say right now, and I'm really, really, really inspired by other, like, really successful business owners, and I think I know what I want deep down, but it will to hear some other, like, varying perspectives, it will help me find the words and the confidence to know that what I'm feeling is right, what I truly
Yeah.
want." And what I was questioning was like, for the last 10 years, I'm like, we'll get bigger and better every year, up and to the right. That's always the goal. And this is the first year that this is the year that I just get to like see if everything I put into place last year can now occur for this year.
Yeah.
But after that, like if this works the way that I think it will, I think I'm good here.
Cool.
Like
Yeah.
my goal is not to like, like, because I keep going through all these thoughts of like, we could add another advisor, we could add in-house advisors, we could grow this team, we could grow that team. And I keep coming back to like, for what? Like, what is the end goal here? And I was having this like moment of crisis of like, well, everybody else is up and to the right, so I should be too. But my gut was like, that's not what you want.
Good for you for tapping into that. You
So
know, I think something we don't talk about too in business, or at least as travel advisors, like sometimes we talk about, or I used to kind of like coin when we were talking to advisors, like the $1 million sales plateau, right? Like the thing that
yeah,
happens when you hit $1 million in
yeah.
sales. But from a business standpoint, there's actually a book called Predictable Success. I think the guy's name is Les McEwen. And he talks about like revenue situations like this, right? So you're hitting, I think the revenues are like $1 million in revenue, 10 million in revenue, and then it goes to like 20 or 50 or something insane. But
Okay.
basically the plateaus that happen that occur at these points where you either have to decide, I'm comfortable where I am,
Right.
or I want to like break some things and build this back, right? Like, and so then you're saying, I
Right.
want to re up for another however many years it's going to take me to get to that next plateau because what got you here won't get you there.
Yep.
And and sometimes we're fine. And I think he even describes it as like sometimes you're on a treadmill. And if you're on the treadmill, that's okay.
Yep.
But if you don't recognize these valleys, then you
Mhm.
could easily slide off of that treadmill and things start breaking and you go, why are they breaking? And it's like, well, because you're trying to run now like a company that's $4 million in revenue, like a company that was $1 million in revenue. Like you're trying to
Yes.
apply the
So
wrong mindset.
I don't know this book, but another book that gave me similar thoughts is 10x is better than 2x. And this is what they talk
Mm.
about is you can, if you have a $1 million company, you can probably get to $2 million doing the same things, but you
Yes.
can't get to 10. And
Yes.
to your point, if you do get to 4, the way that you were running 1, you are really burnt out. Like like that's not a sustainable way to run a business. And so exactly, you have to like break some things, and it's either like maybe you can get up to 2 and you can like really optimize and really be efficient and all the things, but
Mhm.
and your goal might not be 10. But if your goal is anything above 2, you either have to break some things to get there or you're going to burn out.
Yep. And I see that with travel advisors too, when we're talking not necessarily revenue numbers, but sales goals, because we see this all the time. And I used to be this way too. I had a whole like virtuoso speech on like how to work smarter, not harder. And it was all about like maximizing your time so that you could be applying what got you to $1 million to $3 million, but you're so burned out at that point, like that
Exactly.
doesn't acknowledge. So travel advisors who are listening to this, who are not necessarily like, I don't really want to build a business beyond this, but I have my book of business, these same rules very much apply. This is when you start feeling that tension of like, I probably need an assistant or to have someone to pass these things off to. Like there really has to be a reckoning that occurs, or else you're just going to live in that season of burnout.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you're a chairwoman now.
Yeah.
What's the day in the life of a travel agency owner, chairwoman, who stepped away from the day to day of running a really successful, fast growing travel agency and host agency?
It probably depends on whether your CEO lives in the same home as you.
Fair.
It probably looks different for others, but given mine and I share a lunchtime, no. Jeremy and I are fantastic partners in that at first we weren't. Like, we really had to work out a lot of kinks. But now we're doing this dance of like, what is it okay for him to update me on? Slash, as a chairwoman, part of my job is to give advice, which I just am excellent at giving advice. Anyway, like, this is what I was made for.
I love this for you.
I always just
I
tell
think
people,
Brianna will resonate for that. She's like, I'm so good at this.
love this and Brianna. We'll just advice at each other all day. Anyway, if Jeremy specifically says the words, I need you to put your chairwoman hat on and I need advice, then I'm pulled in as chairwoman, right? But this is
Okay.
not what it really looks like is I'm currently living just in a state of actually one of my goals this year is I call it riff over recipe. And it first applied to cooking. And you and I were talking about this the other night of like, I have always followed recipes my entire life. Same kind of thing for entrepreneurship and for my career. Like I just stepped into the next phase that I knew it needed me. And I've never really riffed. Like I've never really given myself like open opportunity to say, when this comes along, do I feel it in my gut that I'm interested? Do I not? Like, I want to be able to trust my intuition. And so I'm leaning more into that riffing experience. And from that, I'm pursuing writing, pursuing fiction writing. I'm
Oh, fiction writing? I thought you were writing like a memoir type of more biographical style.
Well, I started there and just a riff of a recipe. I started realizing like what could actually be sellable. Like memoir is one thing, but if you don't have a platform, it's very hard to sell it. And I just love writing. Like I just wanted to tell stories and like, sure, some of them could be my stories, but I could create beyond that. So I started trying fiction and I absolutely love it. So, so I'm pursuing that. Like I'm working on, I actually have a book on submission right now, which means like maybe a publisher will buy it. Fingers major crossed.
Okay.
And I'll step back and punt. Like I'll figure out like what was wrong with it and what I could change to make it sellable.
I
Um,
love it. Step back and punt.
yeah, that has nothing to do with the travel agency, except that it does. Like I'm infusing. I made the protagonist a travel agent because I want to show our profession in the
Is she a
world.
travel agent or a travel advisor?
Oh, I'm sorry. God, can you believe it? I've been in this for 15 years. She's
Uh,
obviously a travel advisor.
can I see your manuscript? I need some to make some red circles.
You know what's funny is they even intentionally included that in there. She's a travel advisor, obviously.
Okay, thank goodness. I was like, "Lindsay, we gotta talk."
I'm kidding, Whitney.
Unless it's set in the
And you need to be
1970s,
a
we need
beta
to
reader,
talk.
actually. Now that we're saying this, we do need to. I do want to show our profession more in the mainstream. I think it's really important.
I love that.
I want to show the building of a business in the mainstream because I read a lot of fiction and like everyone is a writer that is the protagonist. And I'm like, I want to see an entrepreneur. I want to see someone whose like business just knocked them on their butt or like they couldn't get it off the ground. Like, so I'm writing about that. But
And
in
not like a boyfriend knocked them on their butt.
something, exactly, just some sort of like, what does this look like when the world is against you, but you have a dream? So I like to write about that.
I
I have
love
a
it so
Substack.
much.
I'm keeping my Substack where I'm writing a lot about like chairwoman life.
I love it. So, riff over recipe, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's my goal.
How does this sounds challenging. Is this challenging for you?
So I compare it to cooking, which I'm also leaning into because it's a favorite. And I think that if you've been following a recipe long enough, it's not super challenging because you know in your soul what you're supposed to be doing. You're just keeping the training wheels on because you've always kept the training wheels on. So you've always read the recipe book. Why would you ever change? And for
Mhm.
me, I want to be able to say, no, I know that this needs a dash of vinegar. Like I know that the
Yeah.
counterbalance to this is some sugar. Like I
Mhm.
know these answers because I've been cooking for so long. Same thing with my professional life.
So, this I'm just projecting my own feelings over here, but waking up on a day that's not a vacation and without specific direction of like a looming task list that is too big for that day, what do you do with all the space? How does your brain not melt?
This is a good question because you and I are cut from the same cloth in that way. And I thought I'm going to absolutely just, you know,
I mean,
crumble
like
in
a
this.
few days for like a vacation to, like is totally fine. But when you step away from a business and now you have like this open field in front of you of like the world is your oyster. What are you going to do with it? I think for myself that might be a tiny crisis in the making. Just at least for like a short period of time until I found like purpose again of like
Yeah.
today I want to accomplish this or by the end of the year I'm looking to do xyz and then work backwards with my goals like I feel like I would very quickly find myself making to-do lists again.
So I definitely thought that too. And please, God, no, I still make a to do list. Like I'm not.
I'm not crazy.
Uh, clearly, my type A personality is still intact. Something that's been very surprising to me, and it would be for you as well, if and when you get to this point, which I know you will with the hive, where you don't realize like how much weight your professional life puts on you until it's off. And there's actually a bit of an exhaling that occurs. And I have given myself space for that exhale to say, okay, I might be a little bit bored, but at least I'm not crying, right? Like I might be a little bit like, where do I go
Yep.
next? But like,
Yep.
I don't have to answer that question. So, and the best way I heard this put recently is I've started seeing a functional wellness doctor because I had all these like health things that happened probably because of the stress. And she brought up my cortisol levels and she was like, hey, they're doing better than they were last year. I'm like, that's because I retired. And she was like, but they're still not where we want them to be. And I was like, Elise, that is crazy. Like they need to be where, because I am good. And she was like, no, but what you're not accounting for is time under tension. And I had never heard this phrase before, but she was like,
Interesting.
you were in fight or flight, like at least 10 years, if not longer, but especially like
Yeah.
starting pandemic time, and running this
Yeah.
company then. And you have to account for time under tension. You're like a rubber band that's been pulled. So we got to get you back to a point where you're not kind of still living a bit under tension, even though you're not technically under tension. So I'm with you.
Interesting.
There is some healing that occurs on this side of things that I've been very surprised by.
That's fascinating. I should probably not get my cortisol levels checked. I just don't know that
Maybe I
anything
could
good
call
would
for you.
come from that.
Yeah.
Maybe not knowing is better? Probably not, but
Maybe not. I I've been very happy with the healing journey just from a medical standpoint that has happened. So I will say
amazing.
that's been a big.
Well, that's the most important above all. Is there anything that you miss, or is it too soon to say?
So I do think the things that I miss, I'm able to still get a bit of a hit of because as you saw at the team leaders meeting, I show up for the fun stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm here for dinner.
Oh,
But
it's
it's
happier. I'm on my
yeah,
way.
but it's because I love the people and I love our team. Like I love the people that make up Jet Set. And even as new people come in that I don't know, I love getting to know them because
Mhm.
there's like this shared kinship of like, hey, I cast this vision 10 years ago. And like in some way, shape, or form, you're also believing in this vision. So we already have this cool commonality. And so I miss that. I don't miss managing people. That was not a favorite of mine at any point.
Not mine either. Who does love this? Like,
You know,
have you met someone that's just like, "Man, I really love managing other humans."
I have actually. I have. And
Oh
she
my god.
and I'm like, would you like a job? Uh,
Such a unique set of
unique set.
characteristics and skills and that
So
I
good.
just cannot quite connect with.
I think we talked about this in a former team leaders meeting that mentoring and managing are two separate things.
Oh my gosh.
That was mind blowing to me.
Yeah. That I learned that with my ICs,
Yes. Yes.
which you can't manage technically because they're ICs, but you try to manage them because they came to you for help.
Yes.
So that's a whole really messed up situation. And I
Totally.
hear advisors in the advisor accelerator say on a very regular basis, like, I'm growing my team or I'm bringing on new ICs. And we ask, like, why? What's the goal? Where are we headed? How can we support you? And the answer is, well, I really love to mentor. And there's something that really gets under my skin that I just have to like, I'm sitting here like clenching my fist, like, oh, hold your tongue,
Yeah.
because you can mentor without having an IC.
Yes.
And actually, I suggest and advise that you do that.
Yeah. The way that Brian Miles put this to me one time was you technically can never fully mentor someone that you write a paycheck for. And
So
I
that's
thought,
what I said. And did I take that from you?
oh, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I took it from you.
Or maybe,
And Brian,
so I've been saying the same thing over the last year. So I'm sure that you said it and I just took it from you and like made it my own. But I've said the same, like, no, maybe you said it because I remember hearing it and I was like,
we talked about
everything
this
makes
in my
sense now. Okay. We talked about it in Miami.
leaders meeting. Yeah.
That I remember hearing that, and then suddenly I was like, everything makes sense now.
Yeah.
This is where that friction and that tension was with my ICs, is because I was trying to mentor them and I cut their checks.
Yes. Yes. So
And that just doesn't work. And so, but our industry currently is not set up in a super great way to find a mentor that you're not connected to, because I think while the desire to exchange that knowledge is altruistic, it takes a lot of time and energy, and so generally the thought is, well, if I'm gonna mentor you, then you should come under me so I make a little money from you,
yeah. Yeah.
right?
And I need to be
But
paid.
that's, like, the wrong
But
approach. So,
it's
like, how if we just, like, painted, like, a utopic picture of, like, if we could do this better, like, what would it look like?
I'm gonna ask you to invite Jeremy on at some point because I believe that his vision for the travel industry is more in alignment with exactly what you're saying, and this is something we've talked about ad nauseum, and he's working on it, which is so cool and I'm
Okay.
proud of him. But just the quick blip here is there's a different type of tension. And we notice this as a host agency that comes when you're taking a percentage of a paycheck
Yes. Yes.
versus when you are actively choosing to pay someone for a service. And so like
That's
if
what I was gonna say, is like, does
our
it just kinda goes back to, like, you paid me to be your mentor, we
yeah,
exchange, and then we both move on.
yes, it's because and that's called a coach, and
Let's pull the
we
coach,
need more.
guys.
I think we need more of those.
So
So,
what
and
I
I
think you're describing is a coach.
that is a service, we just need more of it in the industry because our industry is dated in, like, how we do it. But we want to make some changes there, and I think that's, like, so exciting.
So this is and I think a lot of people would be willing to do it. If you are brand new and you think that becoming an IC to gain a mentor is the only option, then saying all of a sudden, well, you can pay for a coach might feel a little bit like, oh,
Yeah,
but if you really want someone to guide you and train you and offer their time for you,
yeah,
um, paying them for their time and their expertise is how that's gonna happen, and that's
yeah,
how it's gonna happen in the best way for all of those involved, and I think that there are a lot of really incredible reasons why one might bring ICs onto their team to build out their
mhm.
team and their agency, but if the end goal that you're trying to accomplish is to mentor it, like, in my opinion, that's not the right end goal.
Right. Well, and you know what? I would even challenge too when you say if you're brand new and have this way of thinking, but when you think about the room we just sat in New Orleans with our fellow team leaders, like no one's brand new in there, right? Like everyone in that room has been in business for like 3 to 10, 20 years with Jill. Like and they're going, "Okay, the problems I have now are so different than the problems that I had when I was merely building a book of business because now I'm building a business." And so I do think like there's a lot of value in getting really strong coaching. And I kind of feel like that's more of what we do at Jet Set, at least with like team leaders and what we're also hoping to build out within the like next groups beyond that with like solopreneurs and everything. But yeah, I just think that we could all stand to learn from each other. It's just that the way the business is structured is kind of not aligned to that. The way the industry is structured right
Yeah.
now.
I think the other thing, and this might be just a like an excuse, but in the advisor accelerator, I've often found like my goal was always to facilitate these really great conversations. My goal was never to present myself as a coach,
Yeah.
but I am often finding myself coaching.
Yes.
And I often don't feel fully equipped to like, because I would not describe
Yeah.
myself as a coach. Like, how does one become a coach, like actually in a way that you can not promise, but lead someone in the direction with certainty of like positive results, right? Like, yes,
Yeah.
it comes from experience, but I do believe that there's some sort of like education or, like perspective or approaches or something that you could learn about, like, here's the proper way to coach if you really want to like take this on as a professional role and not just like going to meet somebody for coffee and listening and
Totally.
offering some advice, right? If you
Yeah.
really want to do it officially.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you're asking the wrong person. I've never sat as a coach, and I've never had an interest in sitting as a coach. But I think that what we are at least what we do at Jet Set is more akin to that.
yeah.
And so it just kind of feeds into this conversation of like, if you're at a host agency and you're not receiving leadership, like then there's some misalignment completely of like, well, what am I getting? Like, so I do think we have to like, as a host, we have to prove our salt. Like we have to be like, you're going to receive this, this, and this.
Yep. Yep. Okay. That's a whole nother topic that I didn't expect us to come to. So maybe
And I'm
Jeremy and I can
ceremonial.
continue
This is not my topic anymore.
the
This is like
conversation. You're like, wait a second, how did we get
hey,
here?
we've gone in the weeds, Whitney. I am strictly against going in the weeds these days.
So, newsflash, I'm really good at getting in the weeds. Whoops. Okay, so I have a big question for you. If someone listening to this is like, maybe not decided, because they probably just like me found out that this was possible of like potentially becoming the chairwoman of their own business and their own company. But if someone is feeling like, maybe this is something I should consider eventually, what questions would you encourage them to reflect on to kind
Mm,
of try to decide, is this right for me?
okay. First, I would love to connect with anyone who's feeling those things, and I write about this a lot on my Substack because I'm reflecting now of, like, what I wish I would have known. I just posted something this week of, like, what happens when we encounter professional heartbreak, because I think this is often the first catalyst. There was an HBR article about this, and I got to speak to it, which was really cool because I never knew that what I was going through was professional heartbreak. But now that I've heard that
Interesting.
term, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. So using that lens, I would think asking yourself the initial question of like, do I feel like this is just a season? Like I'm just a little bit burnout. This is a moment in time. This is something I could like hire a burnout coach or like I could do some
Right.
studying and reading and like reevaluate my practices, but be okay.
Yeah.
Or is this, like, actually something I feel in my spirit, in my body that is, like, screaming at me to evolve and to change? Because for me, it was often that, and I would go, "I'm just kinda burned out, and I'm gonna fix it with all these little tricks." And it was Band-Aids over a bullet wound. And so I would say that's a first question is to really try to dig deep. Like, don't try to do this in the middle of all your meetings. Like, carve out a time to go to a coffee shop or sit by a waterfall or whatever you do to zen out and ask yourself, like, is this temporary or
Mhm.
is this her? And I
Mhm.
think that's the first step.
Amazing. What are you most excited about right now?
So, well, we talked about the book stuff, which is really, really exciting. I am also, I was sharing with you earlier this week, about to be involved kind of in like a spokesperson, brand advocate role for a new nonprofit for business owners. First of its kind. It's called Owner. And it's from the people that I've mentioned several times who have mentored me and Jeremy. They built and sold an incredible company. And now they're going, these are the things we wish we would have had when we were building a business. And because I've gone through the framework now and successfully exited a company, I am like, I'm uniquely equipped to speak to this. And so I kind of came to them and I was like, I know you're building this. I got some time on my hands.
Turns out.
Or, yeah, I would love to be involved. And this was like not, this was so just like divine timing. And they're like, yeah, we want you to like work alongside us and help be the face of this. So I am really pumped about that. It's called Owner. It's spelled O''NR.
What does that mean, or where does it
So,
come from?
great question. So, they initially propositioned this essentially as something called own, not run, because
Oh,
they were
okay.
people get out of the day to day. And so, if you ONR, own, not run, um,
Got it.
then it eventually became, well, we don't want to profit off of people's. We don't want to make this a for-profit business. Like we have the resources to just create for people and make it a nonprofit. And so they've created like these incredible guidebooks that this is all launching in March, by the way. So this is like coming out now. Um,
Amazing.
these guidebooks that you can pay what you want for, and it walks you through like the process of what it looks like to build out a business just like they did. It's really cool.
Wow. Super. Okay. So tell us where we can find more information about Owner and tell us where we can find your Substack.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so my Substack is just lindseyepperley.substack.com. And then
Perfect.
owner is o-nr.org.
.org. Okay. Amazing. Lindsay, thank you so much for just so like openly and I don't know. I feel like it's very vulnerable. I know you're an open book, so maybe it doesn't feel vulnerable, but this is such an interesting topic that I don't think is, really talked about enough into so much detail. So just thank you for your
Well,
willingness to share.
you make it easy. You're an incredible host and you're an incredible human. And I'll tell you from the flip side of this, having admired you for so long and now for the past couple years getting a chance to work alongside you, you also lead with that kind of vulnerability. And it's so cool to see because
Thank
there
you.
are times that when I hear you going like, "Oh, I didn't want to be second at the presentation." And I'm like, "You? You're so confident and you've got it together and you're so cool in what you do." And so it's neat for you to still be able to say like, there's stuff I need to learn and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
the right one to help all of us learn it. So thank you for your leadership in that.
Amazing.
Mm.
Thank you so much for saying that. The love is so mutual. I'll see you back soon. I don't know what it's going to be about, but we'll find something, and
I'll find a
we'll
fun dinner
we'll
to
get
come to.
we'll get Jeremy on to talk about mentorship and coaching.
Thank you.
Coaching. I think we need to start using that word more. Coaching.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Thanks, Whitney. This is
Thank
great.
you.